In this video, we're going to look at part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. Remember, this is the easiest part of the speaking test. But what we're going to do is think about 5 simple rules to follow in this part of the test. Now, they're not strict rules and you don't have to follow them, and if you don't, it doesn't mean you're going to get a bad score, but I just think these are 5 good rules to try to follow to really improve your performance and your score in this part of the test. You've got to remember, this part of the test is meant to be quite easy, so you can keep your answers pretty simple, but not too simple. So, let's get on with these 5 rules. The first simple rule is to keep your answers short and stop with confidence. Now, I know a lot of students, when they go into the speaking test for the IELTS, they'll think they have to really impress the examiner and give really big, long, complex answers. And well, you do have to impress the examiner. That's the idea. You want to show off your English skills, but it's not good to give long answers in part 1 of the test. Remember, these are short, simple questions, and short, simple questions need short, simple answers. Remember, later parts of the test, you'll be giving longer answers. Remember, in part 2, you're giving a really long answer. In part 3, you're quite long answers compared with part 1. So remember, in part 1, you need to keep your answers short and also stop with confidence. Sometimes when students are nervous, they don't know when to stop. They keep going and going and going, and they won't stop their answers. And you need to, because the longer you go, the more confusing your answer is going to get, and the examiner listening to your answer is going to be a bit confused. So there we go. I mean, that's the first rule to follow when you're giving answers in part 1 of the test. Now, the second rule is to answer the questions using full sentences. Now, this is important. Now, I said keep your answers short, but of course not too short. You need to give nice full sentence answers to show off these skills that the examiner is looking for. You've got to remember, you do need to show them some vocabulary, some grammar, some clear pronunciation, and some fluency. Now, in order to show those 4 different skills, you need to be using full sentences. I've had an experience before when I do practice tests with some students, and they will give very short, like 1 or 2 word answers, and that's not really showing me anything. It's very difficult to give someone a decent score in the test, even if their English is really good. If they give really short answers, I'm not hearing enough, right? You need to show them at least a full sentence. And if you can, maybe 2 when we're answering these questions in part 1. But really, that's the second rule there. Answer the questions using full sentences. So, the third rule that we can use when we're answering questions in part 1 is to use words from the examiner's question in your answer. Now, I know to some people this might seem a bit strange, because some students know that we really have to show off the skill of paraphrasing to get a high score. So actually changing words from questions in your answer. But I think to really keep the fluency in part 1 and make sure your answers are nice and clear and concise and straight to the point, it's worth using words from the question in the answer to give that focus. And you can worry about paraphrasing in later parts of the test. Part 2, you get time to think about it more, and you've got 1 minute to plan, and you can really try to paraphrase a bit more. And in part 3, naturally you're going to paraphrase a bit because the answers are going to be longer. So really, I think in part 1, you should use words from the question in your answer. So that's the third rule. Let's move on to the fourth rule now. If possible, you should give a reason for your answer. So this means, of course, I said use full sentences. But if you've used that full sentence as your direct answer, if you can, if it's logical, if it makes sense, then give a reason for that answer. Have a second sentence to kind of explain that first sentence a bit, but no more than that. But all you have to do is give a reason, give an explanation for that answer. Now, of course, with some really simple questions, you don't need to do that. If they ask you a question like, where do you live or where do you come from? Giving a reason for that would be pretty strange. You don't need to do that. But if you can, like I said, if possible, give a reason for your answer. Right, let's move on to the fifth and final rule to follow in part 1 of the test. Don't forget to say yes or no when necessary. So what I mean here is if you get a kind of do you or are you or have you question that kind of doesn't mean you have to give an answer of yes or no at the beginning, but I think it just brings nice focus to your answer, makes it clear and makes it easier to continue. I always think if you kind of use a answer that says, oh, it depends, or I'm not sure, then it just makes the answer a bit more complex to give, and maybe it'll be too long. Remember, in part 1, we need to keep our answers nice and short and nice and clear. So when you get a question like that, focus it at the beginning by saying yes or no, and of course, having a full sentence afterwards. So there we go. Those are the 5 rules to follow, and I just want to show you an example question and answer that kind of follows those 5 rules. If we look here, we've got the question, do you like parks? Now, this is quite a common style of question in part 1 of the IELTS speaking test. Do you like, and then plus something. Here we got the topic of parks. Let's look at an answer to this that follows those 5 rules. Yes, I like parks because they are great places to relax. If you live in a city, a park is often the only place where you can escape from the noise and the traffic. There we go. So you see there how, okay, the answer's pretty short. We're keeping the answer short and we're stopping at the end with confidence. We're not trailing off halfway through a sentence. And we're answering with full sentences. We've got 2 nice full sentences there. Also, we're using words from the question in our answer. We're using the word like and parks, right? And then we're kind of explaining it a bit and then repeating the word park in the second question. So we are using words from the question. So, and if we think about the 4th rule there, it says, if possible, give a reason. And of course, we're giving a reason in our second sentence. We've also given a reason in our first sentence there because they're great places to relax. That's a reason straight away. And then we've explained it more in the second sentence. And of course, we followed the 5th rule. It's a do you question. So straight away, we bring focus by using the word yes. Yes, I like parks. We brought focus there. So you can see this answer illustrates all 5 of those rules being followed. And this is something really I think you should do to give nice, appropriate answers in part 1. This is all you need to do. You don't need to do more than that in part 1. Remember, you're going to show off more in part 2 and part 3 of the test. So there we go. I hope this was really useful for you and you can kind of try and use some of these rules in your answers and practice. If the video was useful, then don't forget to click the like button. And also, if you want to watch similar videos in the future, you don't want to miss out on anything, then remember to click the subscribe button. And don't forget, if you have any questions about the IELTS test, something you're not sure about, then don't forget to ask those questions or give some comments in the comment section on the video. There we go. That's it. That's the end of the video. See you in the next video.